Hello, it's Tyler with Tyler's Clutter Desk, and I'm back with a video after a long time. I was on my YouTube channel yesterday, and I realized that I hadn't made a video since I went to Powell's for my birthday, which was last year, last May. So that was almost a year ago, about like a month or two shy of a year ago. So I figured it would be fun to just sit down and kind of make a stack of what I've been reading lately and yeah, just talk about it. Because I actually really enjoyed making that video, and I wish I had made more. I haven't had the time until now. It's actually the end of the spring term for the college that I'm going to, and I'm gonna be taking the next year or so off, just to kind of work and save money as I get ready to go to a different college. And yeah, I'm also kind of job shadowing at a local private school, so it'll give me some time to kind of get some experience there and kind of have some stuff to put on my resume and kind of just take a year to save money and really kind of invest in myself and set myself up for success for wherever I go next. Um, but all of that aside, I'm here to talk about books. And this stack here, it's not all of the stuff that I've read since I last talked, because if I made that stack, it just it wouldn't it wouldn't really be an entertaining video because we'd be sitting here for 2 hours while I talk to you about the stack of books I read. But these are the ones that I've been reading lately, or the ones that I've kind of found have had the most significant um, influence on my life, kind of in just my thought process, or most recent, kind of both of those. But anyway, so I'm gonna start with the one that I just recently finished, and I got this box set of Penguin Modern Classics. You can see it has a number on there. It's very small, but it's right there. I got this box set of Penguin Modern Classics a couple years ago, and I was reorganizing my books, and I realized that I hadn't read very many of these. I had read like three or four, I think, when I first got them, but I really hadn't touched the box set, and so I felt kind of guilty. So I scanned what authors were there, and there was a book by, or not a book, but kind of this short work by Truman Capote, and I'd read Breakfast at Tiffany's a few months ago, and so I was like, okay, I wanna read more from Truman Capote. So I read this. This is The Duke and His Domain, and it is a interview that he conducted with Marlon Brando, and I don't know if it's necessarily 100% accurate to the interview, or if it's kind of his fictionalized account of it. I would kind of assume the latter. Um, but it's really interesting, really beautiful. Just the way that he kind of writes and paints the scene is really kind of just really entertaining. It's just really interesting. It's a interview that he conducts with Marlon Brando while Marlon Brando is in Japan, filming the movie Sayonara. And it's an interesting point in Marlon Brando's life, and it's just really it's an entertaining piece of literature. I don't know if I necessarily took any deep meaning from it. It was just kind of interesting. I read it while I had my morning coffee a couple days ago, and I just found it interesting, and I wanted to give it a shout out. Now this is the book that I spent the probably the last quarter of 2025 on, and it's pretty substantial. It's like 400, 500 pages. And I want to read it again. This is Women in Love by D.H. Lawrence. I guess I should probably tell you what the name of the book is. And it's a dense book for sure. There's a lot of really intricate work that D.H. Lawrence does when he's kind of creating these characters in the book. Apparently, it's a sequel, which I didn't know until kind of after I finished it. It's a sequel to a book called The Rainbow, which follows a family called the Brangwens. But this book, Women in Love, specifically focuses on Ursula and Gudrun, which are the two daughters of the family, and then their lovers, Rupert and Gerald. And it's interesting because I think what D.H. Lawrence does is he gives you people with four different ideas of how fulfillment is to be found in life. Rupert is this kind of intellectual. He's seeking fulfillment through intellectual pursuit, right? Gerald is this industrialist. He's seeking purpose and fulfillment through fiscal success and materialism. Ursula is this woman who is she's seeking fulfillment through independence and through kind of carving her own way. And then you have Gudrun, who is kind of seeking success through this artistic lifestyle, and through her medium, which is She paints and then she also sculpts, I believe. Anyway, but you have these four characters who are seeking fulfillment in different ways, and you see how that plays out and kind of how they collide and mix. And it's interesting. Like I said, I want to read it again because there's a lot of depth and intricacy I think that I missed, and I think you wouldn't really be able to step back and see the big picture until you kind of know the general outline of the plot. And so I want to go back and read it again because it was a beautiful book. There are just some passages in here that are really just a force to be reckoned with. I think they're just really profound and moving moments. There is a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for? There is a little bit of long-windedness to this book. There are passages where it's a character monologuing and it's going on for 15 pages and you're kind of like, this is, on one hand this is beautiful and profound, but on the other hand it has to end somewhere, and it can be a little much at times, but I think that's kind of just the nature of the book. It's a very melancholy kind of book of intensity, and so I think sometimes those passages of kind of sappiness can come from the intensity. And so I necessarily wouldn't consider it a fault, but it can be kind of something that takes away from the fullness of the book. But yeah, I want to give it another chance. Maybe I'll read The Rainbow, the sequel, or the prequel, I mean, and then read this again. But it's one of those books that you read, and for the longest time you're just like, it randomly comes into your mind, and you're kind of just thinking about the characters, the story. It's just really intriguing, interesting, and I think that's the sign of a beautifully written book. So that's Women in Love. That's, like I said, that's probably the book that I've spent the most time on in the past 6 months. I'm kind of bright. That's the book that I've spent the most time on in the past 6 months. So I thought it was worth discussing. Next, this is what I'm working on right now, and this is Dubliners by James Joyce. So last year I read Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce, and I found it really thought-provoking and entertaining, and I wanted to get my hands on Dubliners because I know that was kind of his first venture into the world of prose, and so I wanted to kind of just sample some more of what he's written, and I have already read stories out of this kind of collection before. I've read Araby and I read The Dead for a literature class, an English literature class. And I really loved them. So to get the chance to read other stories in the collection was a lot of fun. It's just really, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a really lived in work. All of these stories have such life and such humanness to them that if anybody who has experienced life, even a little bit, can find themselves in the characters of these stories. There's everything from children in their school days to they're having a funeral for this priest, and they're all just very touching, very intriguing stories. I think sometimes when we read, it's simply out of curiosity for other people's lives, and I think this really captures that. It makes you curious and care about other people's lives in a place that you've never been. And I think that it's a really beautiful kind of ode to Dublin, where Joyce kind of grew up and spent a lot of his life. So, yeah, really beautiful. I'm about halfway through, maybe 3/4, and just really, really really lived in stories, really human, really well described and beautifully painted. And yeah, I would definitely recommend this to anybody who's interested in getting into Joyce. It's definitely a lot less dense than Portrait of the Artist. That's another book that I want to go back and read again because there was a lot to it, and I feel like I may have missed some of it. Yeah, this is one that I'm also working on right now. I read this kind of in the mornings over my coffee because they're easy stories to read, but they're just really intriguing. And this is the stories of John Cheever. Now, John Cheever, from what I know about him, spent a lot of his time in New York, and a lot of these stories he published about his experiences in New York and the people that he met. And they're stories from all different backgrounds. There's stories about that I've read about farmers in here. There's stories I've read about people in the city, living in apartments, or kind of people going on vacation. There's all sorts of stories for whatever mood you're in, and each story has been very touching and profound. Um, the one that kind of really stuck with me the most was this story of a couple living in an apartment in New York, and the husband buys his wife and their family a radio, kind of just as a gift because they love listening to music and they love the radio. So he was like, maybe it'd be a good gift to buy a really nice radio. So he does. He goes out and buys this radio, brings it back. They have it installed, and the radio doesn't work. Um, in the sense that it doesn't play radio stations. It actually tunes into what's happening in the apartments around them. And it's an interesting story because it really kind of just displays humanity in its full effect. Where you have people who are there's a husband who is abusing his wife, and there's a lady in the apartment next to them, cheating on her husband with the janitor, and it's just and there's people having parties and talking garbage about each other, and it's a very the husband and wife listening to the radio are just hit with the full kind of frontal attack of humanity's fallen nature. Um, and it really also has to do with how being nosy and involving ourselves in other people's drama and kind of just sadness can affect our own lives, right? Eventually the wife is like, you we're not unhappy like this couple. We don't have problems like this couple, right? And it almost it puts a strain on their marriage because she's so obsessed with other people's lives that she's not paying attention to her own. And I think there's a valuable lesson in there. And that's one of the stories. It was like 10 pages long. And it's obviously a thick book. It's probably close to, yeah, 820 pages, 825 pages. So really beautiful stories. Like I said, all walks of life, all different kinds of stories, and they're short, they're sweet, um, and I found this to be a good alternative to watching TV in the morning. Usually, when I get up in the morning, I want to read a magazine or watch a TV show, something that's not like going to require a lot of mental engagement right out of the gate because I want to wake up. But these stories don't necessarily require a lot of mental engagement. They kind of just let me relax and enjoy the story, but it's written in a way that's not so like I need to like really lock in and kind of focus on the text. They're just nice. It's like it's almost it's like it feels like I could just sit and instead of doom scrolling, I could doom scroll the pages of the story. Like they're just very short, sweet, kind of they really trigger that short-term dopamine. Um, so yeah, I've really been enjoying those. And last but certainly not least, is my kind of crusade into Greek drama. So in January, I read some plays by Euripides, and I was like, "Whoa! How have I missed out on on this train?" And I mentioned that I was kind of sticking around the classes of this classical Christian school, and I'm actually reading Sophocles' play Oedipus Rex with a class at that school right now, and Sophocles is certainly different than Euripides, but it's equally fascinating and kind of I keep saying profound, but equally fascinating and intriguing. Um, I think God was certainly moving in Greek culture and kind of fertilizing the soil for Christ, and reading this play and kind of seeing these different playwrights examine Greek society and its problems has been really interesting, and it's been fun to read this play with the class and kind of hear their reactions and comments because it's Oedipus Rex is, if you haven't read it before, is a wild ride for sure. This is my first experience with it, and it's Greek plays, man. All of them, all the ones I've read so far have been an adventure, and it's just really cool to I'm almost 21, 21 years old, and this is my first exposure to Sophocles. And so to think that kids are kind of getting this exposure, and kind of understanding human nature and what happens in the absence of Christ is really, really cool. It's just really awesome. Um, yeah, and I think that's the beauty of classical education is, I'm learning things at my age, and seventh graders are learning things at their age, and even though we're in different stages, we can still take valuable lessons from this work, and their spiritual maturity when they get to be my age is going to be exponentially more than mine, because they're interacting with this stuff 6 years before, 7 years before I even get to see it. So yeah, it's just really cool. And it's definitely expanded the way that I look at the world, reading Sophocles, Euripides, etc. And yeah, so that's just a video to kind of touch base with YouTube again, and talk about what I'm reading right now, because I haven't in a while, and I actually kind of enjoyed it. So I'm hoping to check in from time to time to talk about books or religion or philosophy, whatever I'm kicking around upstairs, and now that I have more time. So yeah, this was a lot of fun, and I hope you tune in for some other videos, and take care. God bless. Bye.